Hey everyone, it's Christina with My Confection Obsession, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a fondant, cactus, and succulent cake. So this cake is actually a follow-up to my buttercream succulent cake, and it seemed like you guys really liked that cake. So I wanted to do a little bit of a twist, and so I'm going to be using fondant as my main tool for this. And so our cactus and our succulents are going to look really clean, and it's going to give it a really cool modern look on this cake. In front of me I have an already ready to go cake. So this is a 4-layer 6-inch cake that I have covered in white buttercream. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a little bit of buttercream frosting and I'm going to frost it around the base. And then I'm going to take some graham cracker crumbs, and I want this to actually look like a little bit of desert sand against the bottom of my cake. I think that's something that will look really unique. And I'm just going to take some graham cracker crumbs and gently spoon them along here. It can get a little bit messy, so I'm trying to be careful. And then just kind of spread it like that. So the base of my cake is ready. It has our desert sand, and next I'm going to start cutting out all my different fondant shapes. So you're gonna see I have 3 different shades of green here because I want a look of variety on our cake. I don't want everything to look completely the same. And then I do have a couple of accent colors. So I have some pink and some purple that I'm gonna be using for little flowers that I'm gonna put on our cacti. And for this fondant, I just used my own homemade marshmallow fondant recipe, and I just dyed it, and I actually used Americolor for all of these different colors. So I'm actually going to go ahead and freehand the cactus as I'm making them. And so these are going to be flat against the cake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my shapes. I'm just going to cut them out with an X-Acto knife. So what I'm going to do is when I put these on the cake, I'm going to put them along the side, and I'm going to kind of stack like that. So it has kind of like this really clean look to it. So as I'm cutting out the fondant, I'm actually just literally cutting out the exact shape that I'm going to use against my cake. So it's going to look something like that against the cake. And so for this cactus shape, I'm going to go ahead and give this a little bit of texture. So I'm using this, I think it's called a stitching tool, and it came with a fondant tool set that I bought, and I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. So another type I'm going to make are kind of just some tall, straight cacti. So roll this out. So the next shape I'm going to make is going to be a smaller version of this that's going to go against the cake. And this actually is constructed of just a bunch of little rolled triangles. So I'll show you guys how I did this. So you are gonna need a little bit of Wilton dab and hold to glue all the different little pieces together. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna take a little mound of fondant in the color that you want. And this is gonna be like our base that all of our leaves are gonna adhere to. So it's gonna be on the bottom of the cake. What you're gonna do is you're gonna roll out your fondant, and then I found it easy just to make kind of like a rectangle shape. And then from here, you're just gonna cut some triangles. And then we're just gonna kind of roll these. And what's gonna happen is we're gonna adhere these to the bottom. So I'm not putting any of my dab and hold on quite yet because I want to get the shape and make sure it's gonna work before I use the glue. And for the shape I created, I actually made it a couple days ago because I wanted it to dry so that my little leaves would stick up. So I would definitely suggest making some of the shapes ahead of time so that they can set. And then when I get to the cactus cake toppers, those definitely have to be done ahead of time because they have to dry. Actually go against the cake like that. So I'm just trying to smooth out some of this so it looks a little bit cleaner. I'm not worried about any of the cornstarch because I'm gonna go over this with shortening after I put it on the cake, and that's just gonna come off and the fondant will end up shiny and clean. Okay, so for one version of the succulent, I'm going to be using these flower cutters here. And so what you're gonna do in whatever color you wanna use is you're going to make a tiny little ball for the center. And if you want a pretty leafy succulent, you can actually cut out more than one of the same size. So I'm gonna make a couple of the larger size. And what we're gonna do next is we're actually going to thin out the edges a little bit. So I have my little foam board and I'm gonna take my fondant ball tool and gently stretch the edges here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start wrapping these pieces around the center. So you're going to see that the petals, you do want to kind of keep them open a little bit and keep the center one closed, but you want them open a little bit like a succulent. And I can see, I think this is a little too big, so I'm just gonna make it a little bit smaller. So you guys can see why I made an extra layer. And then I do suggest making this one a little bit ahead of time so that the leaves can dry, or the succulent, I don't know, succulent petals? I don't know what they're called, can dry how you like. And what you're gonna get is a hard succulent that looks something like this. So it looks really pretty. So I do want to make some succulents in a little bit of a different color just to add some diversity to our cake. So I'm going to be using some purple and pink. You guys could also use like a bright yellow or maybe a teal, whatever colors you have in your vision of your cactus cake. So I'm gonna roll this out. And I'm using these fondant rose cutters, which also will be in the show notes. They're a really easy way that you can make a quick rolled up rose. And then I'll obviously be using these as succulents. So you're just gonna press down. And then you can also thin out the edges of this a little bit if you'd like. You don't have to. I like the look of it better. Like that. And you can put a little bit of dab and hold here. You can use water if you're gonna let this dry for a while. I just don't think water works quite as well. So we're gonna set that aside. I'm also gonna make some pink succulents as well in the same way, but I'm gonna use a different size cutter so that there's a little bit of variety there as well. So another thing I'm going to do is add some tiny little flowers to our cactus. So I'm gonna cut some of those out to use also. So I'm gonna use pink and purple for those. And what I'm doing for these is I'm actually using just some icing tips and then almost using them like a cookie cutter. So for our cactus cake toppers, I do want to let you guys know that I essentially did the exact same thing. So I cut out the shapes and I used my dab and hold, but I did let these dry for a couple different days. So I did let these dry for a couple days so that they're hard and they're gonna stand against the cake. So you do need to make these ahead of time. So now you guys can see that I have prepared all of my different fondant shapes, and the next thing I'm gonna do is start sticking them to the side of our cake. Okay guys, so my fondant cactus cake is complete, and I decided this is what it looks like when you drive to Palm Springs. So I love this cake, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode, and if you did, go ahead and like it below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And you can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and Twitter.